Welcome back to Veterans Claims Ambush number 1919. This is a very interesting session. It's going to lead to more interesting ones too. If you have not looked at the prior lessons in this college level course, please go back and do that. I'm going to be talking about a very important decision, an excellent decision by a brilliant veterans law judge and staff attorney at the BVA that will demonstrate almost every point that I've talked about up until now. So we're going to go over an excellent decision by a BVA veterans law judge that's going to take VBA apart. The medical conditions will be horrible. The actions of the VBA will be equally horrible. The junk work that Victor Bravo Alpha will send up is distressing. The veterans law judge will have no choice but to do exactly what is done in the opinion. The veteran will be talking about stroke, heart attack, very serious diabetes, and with muscle weakness and distress caused by the stroke, perhaps diabetic retinopathy, which is diabetes can wreck the retina in your eyes. I'm going to speed through that decision because it's 18 pages long. But I want you to understand, when I have historically said to you in this course of lectures that VBA can and does send junk work up, I am understating. And I am not understating how serious this is when I tell you that a brilliant veterans law judge takes them to town in a very professional way. I am not giving undue praise. I'm not like that. So this is number 19. Guess what? You are back in the ambush, the forest. There it is. If you remember, this material is from earlier in the course. If you want to look at grand strategy, here you go. Go there. That's about military strategy. I don't care about that. If you want to follow along where I'm going with this opinion, Milgram pain experiment, Stanford prison experiment, look up the pay grade for GS-14 federal employees because they're loose in all the ROs, the field offices. Remember, they are sometimes called Agency of Original Jurisdiction, AOJ. There are some excellent employees at VA. VAMCDC has saved my life. I go on and on with that. And I am... Well, let's move forward. I find today's lecture is rather disgusting on several levels, but I find it refreshing to see a veterans law judge address in the greatest detail how bad VBA really is with judicial restraint. That is my opinion, interpretation of his opinion. Remember this from earlier on. I'm telling you this to get ready for this one today. VBA is not BVA. The board admin is not the veterans law judges. So if these guys cause you grief, it's not this particular group of people. Title 38 is U.S. Code. 38 CFR is how the Veterans Administration says they will enforce this law. The board is not under the Federal Administrative Procedures Act. There is no discovery for you, no cross-examination, no depositions. Oh, there are arcane rules that say maybe, possibly, kind of, sort of. There aren't. You won't get affidavits from these actual employees at VBA. Federal rules of civil procedure don't apply. This is done behind your back. It's fully ex parte at VBA. They'll hide all kinds of things from you. AI is sometimes used for filling out some of the Board of Veterans' Appeals decisions. I call them judgments. They're technically not judgments, in my opinion. The Board of Veterans' Appeals is not a court. But it's there by statute. It is created by Congress. And if you talk to a veterans law judge, you address them as Your Honor. Unless they tell you otherwise, you address them as Your Honor. I've done subpoena demands and had them ignored, not by the veterans law judge, but by the board admin. Okay? Board admin is not the VLJs. These guys here have ditched my papers, have hidden my papers, etc. Not VLJs. Okay. Board admin, if you deal with them, get used to it. I went over this case the other day. This is Death Watch. This is a Death Watch case. It is a perfect opinion based on the law. Number 18 goes over this. Go back to 18, take a look at it. And that was my wheel of fate. You file. VBA issues a decision. You appeal it. BVA issues a decision with remands. And it goes back to the same VBA that screwed up the first time. Okay, VBA denial, appeal to BVA, remand to VBA, and years pass in which you may die. And Death Watch statistics favor the House. VBA knows how to play delay. Right? Hey, a close football game. There's 1 minute left on the clock. You know what's going to happen. The guys in front, leading the score. They're going to hold that ball. They're going to run that clock down. And well, VBA does it over years, not 1 minute. And they know it. This is the case I want to talk to you about today. So I'm going to take a short break and then come back to this, and we're going to go through this quickly. Okay, I'm back. You can look this case up, get a clear copy. Citation number, go to BVA website, search decisions. You can type in this number. There's the docket number. You can type in this number. Okay? All right? The date of the decision is February 11, 2022. Okay. They issue orders. Well, I call it a judgment, but as I say, I don't think it's a court. Just my opinion. So they issue it and they call it an order, and it's going to go through all this. Look at all this stuff. This is denied. This is granted. A lot of it is highly technical. It has to do with effective dates. This is very important micro-analysis by a very careful staff attorney and veterans law judge. It is minutia, but it is important minutia. Okay, effective dates. Okay. But look at this one. Entitlement to an initial 70% rating, but no higher, for chronic adjustment disorder with mixed anxiety and depressed mood is granted. You're going to say, you mean the board granted that? Yeah, and look what's remanded. There are going to be 14 remands. Not 5, not 6, 14, 1, 4. All right. What's going back down? 10%, 10%, 40%. There's a 0% one in here. This is all going to add up. It's going to add up and up and up. And look at this, a 60%. I don't want to burden you with reading this case in detail. But I want you to see how complex these things get. The remands just go on and on and on. Okay, findings of fact, and they're going to break this down. This veteran, his dates of service go back basically to Vietnam. The only reason that VBA has to even consider this is because Congress changed the law. This is an environmental poisoning case. Blue Water Navy, close in. This guy comes down, this veteran comes down with all kinds of residual problems. Now their claims. There's a 70% grant on the front page. This one is going to involve mental conditions, serious diabetes, stroke, heart attack, with consequent peripheral damage to being able to use muscles. This is not lightweight stuff. Examinations are going to be necessary. VBA, Victor Bravo Alpha, is not going to sit around deciding stroke, brain injury, serious diabetes, heart attack, the extent of it, all right? Residuals alone, and a mental condition. Judicial restraint means that the VLJ should not scream at VBA for doing such a bad job. That's my opinion. Without the act of Congress, this case would have been kicked out, as you can see in the case that it was, by VBA, which had thousands of these types of similar claims. Back in 2009, Congress had to pass a law. VA had statistics, claims, etc. The Congress had to pass a law with presumption. I told you about the U.S. Code, 38 CFR. All I want you to do in seeing this, look at all the times that technical reference to statutes are made. The criteria for an effective date of April 16, 2010, but no earlier, for the grant of service connection for the right upper extremity muscle weakness, residuals of stroke have been met, and it refers to a statute. 2010, this case is 2022. It's going to go back for remand. It's not going back up to the board probably till 2024 or 5, probably 5, when VBA comes to some conclusion and screws it up again. How many years are we talking about here? This veteran had obviously an excellent lawyer that went through all of these sequences, gathered all this information. All right? It tells you what a claim was back in the day. Remember, this started in 2009, so before 2015. It used to be that VBA, very well paid, had a duty to help out. Not anymore. Not anymore. You will reinvent the wheel. I expressed that in another video. They may have 1,000 cases like yours. You must plead your own case from the start. They will not apply any knowledge, information, etc. from any other case to yours. You must reinvent the wheel with every case. Here we go. This is basic stuff. We're on page 4. Each disability must be viewed in relation to its history, and the limitation of activity imposed by the disabling condition should be emphasized. Its history. Do you think VBA reads the entire history of your claim? Do you think they have time? You know what the answer is to that. I've shown you that the bonus emphasis will control a lot of what VBA does. And the worst that can happen is they send a case with junk work up to BVA, and BVA takes it apart and sends it back down. And VBA gets their hands on it again. On you. And they can send junk work up a second time. There's nothing BVA can do about it. Okay. We move down into other statutory definitions with cases, and we talk about things like stage rating. Do you know what that is? Well, we depend on medical evidence. What is medical evidence? We start seeing all these references again. CFR, the AOJ found, so he's getting a 20% assignment from a certain date. That's nice. There is no evidence to show you had diabetes on this date. So they have to do something about the date. So technically speaking, you see what the Veterans Law Judge is doing. Careful analysis of even effective dates. Well, let's go to the next page. We have more of it. We have, for diabetes, we have all this detail. Why is this even in this report? Well, it's this judgment. Why is it there? Short break. I'm back. Why is all this material here in this decision? Because they have screwed up. Now, you can read, you can go into the details of this case, but that's not why I'm presenting it. Oh, no. So you see heart condition, mental condition, diabetes. Look at that. This is really excellent writing by this Veterans Law Judge. Why? Because the Veterans Law Judge goes through a demonstration of how psychological disorders are actually analyzed according to the law. See the rating qualifications? Now, you may read this on your own. I strongly suggest you take a look at this. Go back and look up the case, or print down this copy. Okay? See how it steps up? 30, 50, 70, 100. You have to understand, there is a book, and the book has lines like a ledger almost. I showed you what it starts out as. And what it does is it tells the examiners how to decide. It is binding because it is law from Congress. All right? You see here where they have the reference to CFR? Okay, CFR. You can go to 38 CFR sections 4.125 through 4.130, and that's what this will tell you about. Okay? Now, short break. Okay, let's take a look at an extremely demonstrative page. This particular gentleman, this Navy veteran, okay, he's got all these things that are wrong with him, and he's filed claims. He's got an excellent lawyer that's going through this, and the board responds. The Veterans Law Judge lays out an examination, a DBQ, Disability Benefits Questionnaire. DBQ. In that DBQ, a psychologist, PhD is a psychologist, cannot prescribe drugs. A psychiatrist is an MD who can prescribe drugs. There's a big difference. So the psychologist examines the Navy veteran and writes a report. She found the depressive disorder manifested in symptoms of, look at this, depressed mood, anxiety, suspiciousness, panic or depression. This is pretty serious. Cannot sustain the stress for a competitive work environment. All of this supported a 70% rating. Okay, here we go. It is unclear why the AOJ did not consider HHG's, the psychologist, why the board did not consider HHG's DBQ and its accompanying statement. So you see, it is unclear why the AOJ did not consider. They didn't even consider it. Think about that. The file for this veteran, stroke, heart attack, mental disorders. This is like a billboard flashing at night from a PhD psychologist. It is unclear why and then we have the Veterans Law Judge going through a description of the fact pattern that is discussed as part of the Veterans File. Why does the Veterans Law Judge have to do that? Because that's the work of the AOJ. So what's happening is you end up with a 70% rating, plus X could take this particular veteran to 100%, but based on the foregoing, a total 100% rating is not warranted for the mental condition, because the veteran did have some strong social contact with his sister. But look at the rating. Now we've got bilateral neuropathy. What's that from? Well, what do you think it's from? Diabetes? Neuropathy is basically the nerves don't work in a certain part of your body. With diabetics, it's often the feet, legs. But the same is true for strokes. So we go through all of this, and it says here, an evaluation of 20% is assigned from September 20, 2009, the day we received your claim. Now we've got it down to 10% diabetic neuropathy in the feet. The AOJ was required to develop and adjudicate, remember that word, you're in litigation. A claim is litigation. Adjudicate a claim for secondary service connection for bilateral neuropathy of the feet because it was reasonably raised during the adjudication of the formally initiated claim for the proper evaluation level for the primary service-connected disability. All right, say that quick. You need a lawyer. As for the date entitlement arose, well, I don't care if you get stuck in the weeds here with this. Don't even bother. We're going to get to something exciting. So this is effective date. How do you figure this stuff out? Mental condition. We're on 10 of 18. We're still carrying forward some numbers here, right? April 16, 2010, VA treatment shows a stroke. The AOJ found, well, now wait a minute. Did the AOJ find that the stroke was service-related? There's going to be a question about this. This is a big deal. You don't have to be a genius to know diabetes can cause a stroke. Look it up on the internet. Diabetes causes stroke. You'll get 100 articles. There was a secondary service connection for right lower extremity muscle weakness because of the VA diagnosed the veteran's stroke on April 16, 2010. Whoa. Logic dictates that the right lower extremity muscle weakness, as a stroke residual, could not have occurred prior to the stroke. The veterans law judge is resorting to logic. Short break. I've gone on to page 12 of 18. As the appeal was pending, they do this. You file the appeal and they're still playing around. The AOJ, the RO, VBA, service-connected the veteran's right upper extremity muscle weakness residuals of stroke. So, muscle weakness is secondary to the stroke, and they still haven't decided the stroke. Do you see logic? Do you see right hand not knowing what left hand is doing down there at VBA? So what they did, instead, the AOJ service connected the disability secondary to diabetes mellitus. Diabetes. Okay. It's telling what they did, and they simply assigned it sideways. We're still into the weeds with all of this. When did the entitlement arise? And we're back to merits for you were diagnosed with a stroke. Now, wait a minute. Here, it's telling you. He filed for service connection for a stroke. AOJ, VBA, denied the claim, and the veteran appealed the denial. As the appeal was pending, the AOJ service connected the veteran's erectile dysfunction residuals of stroke. So they denied the stroke, but they said erectile dysfunction is a residual of stroke, and erectile dysfunction is service connected. Do you see a problem with this? They sent this up to BVA. We're now on page 13. And what you have seen here is lots of language in very great detail where the VBA sends up junk. And the BVA, with restraint, is showing you sent up junk. Now, we turn to the bottom of 13 of 18. Remand is warranted for 14 reasons. Remand is warranted for 14 reasons. 14 reasons. There we are. 14 reasons. Not 5, not 6, 14, 1, 4. There it is. So this goes back to VBA. Who gets fired? Who gets disciplined? Who doesn't get their bonus? What's going to go back? Look at all these things that are going to go back. Look at all these things, this rating. Go back and look at they're telling VBA, look at 38 CFR. Medical examinations can be useless, but sometimes, if VA determines it is necessary because a medical examination or medical opinion is necessary if the information and evidence of record does not contain sufficient competent medical evidence to decide the claim. They already decided the claims. VBA already decided it. This excellent, patient veterans law judge is sending them back 14 remands. The veterans law judge has had to resort to plain logic. The board finds the AOJ's decision not to examine the veteran for his diabetic retinopathy before rating it violated 38 CFR, etc. They rated diabetic retinopathy before any examination. Why not? Move it in, move it out. You're marked on the basis of turnover. We're still running through remands. We're on page 15. This is funny because here, the board awarded a 40% rating for diabetes above an issue 2. You understand the mental condition is going to be 70. Here comes 40. You understand what TDIU is? It's going to be a Rice versus Shinseki required remand. They're going to have to consider this. Heart attack. Okay? The big myocardial infarction. Blood clot. Block. The board finds the AOJ erred twice in this analysis. Here's Dr. Skaggs down here. Disability Benefits Questionnaire, DBQ, dated January 31, 2017, included an opinion that this condition is caused by your psychological disorder. Since service connection was established for a mental disorder, service connection is also established for headaches on a secondary basis. The evaluation completed by Dr. Skaggs shows significant impairment associated with these headaches. So there is conflicting evidence regarding whether or not a chronic headache disorder exists, because somebody said he changed medications and he hasn't complained. The other guy said, well, he's complained about these things. While there is conflicting evidence regarding whether or not a chronic headache disorder exists, reasonable doubt is resolved in your favor to establish service connection. Once the AOJ resolved doubt by finding the veteran had headaches, it was required to rate them. By relying on an examination that says the veteran does not have headaches, the board finds the AOJ's decision not to obtain an addendum opinion or a new examination for the headaches before rating them violated. And it tells you, this is the veterans law judge patiently explaining how VBA screwed up. Here we see references to the diagnostic code. Okay. The AOJ did service connect the veteran's right lower extremity muscle weakness. Okay. And we see the diagnostic code. But you see, VBA picked out 8512, and here the veterans law judge says Given the veteran's disability is right lower leg extremity muscle weakness, Diagnostic Code 8512 appears inappropriate. Why? He didn't have a peripheral nerve examination to determine which nerves the stroke impaired. They rated it without the examination. Not to examine violated 38 CFR. Short break. I'm back. Here we go. Watch the ball drop. The examiner found mild right upper extremity muscle weakness due to the stroke. The AOJ service connected the veteran's upper lower extremity muscle weakness. Why? It found the following. The board finds the AOJ's decision not to examine the veteran for his right upper extremity muscle weakness before rating it violated. Would you trust these VBA people with Legos? You see what the Veterans Law Judge is doing is saying, this is not hard to do. Follow these steps. 14 remands. Okay. Here's another one. Committed a pre-decisional duty to assist error in not examining the veteran. So, what does that say about examinations? This poor veteran. He files for individual unemployability, TDIU. The TDIU issue is inextricably intertwined with the other remanded issues. Therefore, the board will remand it, but it will not order additional development. Well, inextricably linked. He's had a heart attack, a stroke. He's had fallout from the stroke in terms of peripheral nerve injuries. He's got bad diabetes. He is there because of an act of Congress. I think it's pretty clear from the Veterans Law Judge. You don't need a separate examination for this. TDIU is woven all through this. All right. So the matters are remanded for the following action. This is a recipe on how to make cookies. It's telling them exactly what to do. Schedule the veteran for an examination to determine the nature and severity of his diabetes. The examiner, as part of the examination, must review the claims file to include this remand. 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 Veterans Law Judge Dawson did an excellent, detailed job. And a lot of work was done by the attorney for the board, M. Sopko. I praise their efforts and their patience. Short break, and I'll come back and explain something more. Took longer than I thought. All right. Here's my final observation on this case. It's a disaster. It's an absolute, utter disaster. 14 remands. Instructions on how to make cookies. VBA sent junk up to BVA. The excellent attorney for this particular veteran made sure that BVA had full pleadings. Don't go into this kind of stuff without a lawyer. And I'm going to tell you something else. Every one of these remands, and they're not easy, when they go back, are expedited. Expedited. Now, this is not your case. This particular veteran has 14 remands. Imagine you had just filed your claim. This case comes down with 14 complex issues of failure by VBA. It is expedited and goes in front of your claim. In front of your claim. You are not expedited. This case with 14 remands for a man who obviously fits under the congressional statute is already 70%. Plus, all this time is going to be wasted at VBA to fulfill these particular 14 remands. That means your claim is going to wait behind this one. But the time factor for VBA is not going to change. Now they'll tell you 125 days is our target. And I'm going to show you that 125 figure elsewhere. 125. By 150 or 180, your case is going to be decided one way or the other, with or without examinations, with or without reading your whole medical file, your whole claims file, because they have to get you out of there. This Navy veteran is in front of you with 14. The attorney for the veteran is going to take the 14, and probably 8 of them or 9 of them are going to be new denials and go right back to the BVA, which will take another 2 years, maybe 3 years. BVA cannot enforce its own judgments. And so while they're working on this particular series of remands, do you think they have time to address yours? So you're going to get decisions, and you will become the next Navy veteran, because it's important to VBA to get you out of the barn on the way out. And then you will appeal to BVA, but they will have achieved their time stat and their bonus. You may end up with a junk decision like this Navy veteran. And you may end up with remands back to the same people that didn't bother to read your examinations, to have examinations, read your medical record, just like this Navy veteran. So the mill, it's not a hamster wheel. It's like a train wreck after a train wreck after a train wreck. Do you see? So when you file, understand there are thousands, because this is just one case. This is 2022. How many remands do you think there were in 2022 going back to VBA expedited? How about 2023, 2024? Thousands of remands go back to them. Everyone is expedited. I had to go to federal court because VBA refused to work on remands that I had. I had to go and get extraordinary relief from the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims to force VBA to do its job. BVA could not enforce it. The secretary didn't really care. And so I'm in federal court against the secretary because his VBA refused to work. And then I found out they were deleting files. What you learn from this is they will pencil whip without even an examination. You learn there's 14 remands in front of you. How can you run an organization like VBA and have thousands of remands in a year without firing managers? All right, I'm not your lawyer. I'm not giving you legal advice. This is a college-level educational course. I found today's lecture to be shocking, distasteful, etc. But I have worked up to this, and some of the stuff that follows in the later editions, later videos, will be illustrative of why things like this happen. The BVA, I will examine it next time, and I will show you congressional records. You just saw excellent work by that veterans law judge, and here's my proposition. My voice is going. Get rid of Veterans Benefits Administration, VBA. Just get rid of it. Turn the whole thing over to Social Security, where there are due process rules, you can examine your file, etc. People get fired when they do stuff like this at Social Security. You get hearings with administrative law judges. You can end up back in a U.S. district court, a trial court, on appeal. Just get rid of VBA. Next. You take all the administrative law judges, especially excellent ones, and staff attorneys who do this kind of work, and you take them over to Social Security, and you transfer them from veterans law judges to administrative law judges under the Administrative Procedures Act. You can't get better opinions than this anywhere than the one I just showed you. The detail it goes into. The instructions they have to give on how to do your job, VBA. So that's my remedy. That's it for today and probably for several days. My condition makes it that way. Okay, the next one is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about this as an exception to human nature. If you want to look at it in advance, Google Form of Hate, Board of Veterans Appeals. It was going on, according to the ABA, for 7 years, using the email system of the board. Okay, next time.